So how can observability help enable your DevOps organization? And to kind of show that to you, I want to take a look at a production microservice application which has been instrumented by Instana. And this is actually Single Music, the organization I'm a co-owner and co-founder of. And we started this 3 years ago with just a couple other engineers, and we essentially distribute music and report on it through a Shopify integration. Now, we launched in 2018 with around 15 microservices, but since then, we're almost at 1,000 installs. We're in over 1,000 stores, including names like Madonna, Tool, as well as Bruce Springsteen, and a lot of other big bands. And they've trusted us to distribute their music and report on those sales. And we rely upon Instana to make sure that our system is operational, because without Instana, we wouldn't have any idea if things were broken or not. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to explain some of the situations we've gotten into launching this product. And had we not had the observability component, we wouldn't have been able to easily figure these problems out and solve them. So the first thing I want to cover, though, is because we do have observability and we're emitting all these signals from our application and we're able to aggregate and understand those, we're able to get insights into the application. Dependency mapping becomes really trivial, and myself and the other engineer on this project, we can track the golden signals, things like throughput, error rate, and latency on every operational and service request perspective on this application. So let's take a look at what the dependency mapping looks like on a real production application, because that to me is probably one of the most impressive pieces of Instana, is the ability to easily see and understand all of the dependencies within your application. So I'm on the dashboard for Single Music, and if we go into production and we go into dependencies, we can quickly see all of the services in which you're communicating with one another, but we can hover over them and it will quickly isolate the groups of services which are dependent on those each particular one. Not only that, but we can get an understanding of what our external dependencies are, because what we're looking at here is essentially a group of microservices communicating with one another, with databases, with RabbitMQ. But what about those external things? What about those stores we interact with to make sure that we're distributing and correctly processing their music orders? So if we click on a button that says we need to look at services outside of this, our dependency graph starts looking much more complex. And this is just an illustration of why you need observability in these types of systems, is because things quickly get complex in only a year or two of operation. We have quickly ramped up to the point where there's no way we could manage the system just by grepping logs, right? So some of the other things that we were able to do with this is we were able to visualize some architecture or algorithmic approaches to problems. And one of those was setting a exponential backoff for one of our lock processes. Instead of hammering Redis to obtain a lock, we slowly back off that time, and we were able to visualize us implementing that within Instana. It made it really easy to confirm that the behavior in our application was what we expected. And we also had a situation when we were early in the project where we had a large release, something like 20,000 sales within 6 hours. And we noticed in one of our applications in our account database a steady rise in latency. And this was all derived from trace metrics, from our application making a request to the database and Instana collecting that trace and aggregating that information and then showing it to us in the dashboard. And what we recognize is that this is going to slowly die if we don't do something about it. And what ended up happening is really simple. We had a Hibernate query causing O n log n rise in latency and processing, because every time we would add a transaction, we would load all the other previous transactions. It was a simple fix, but the application dashboard indicated an issue with the overall latency. And when we deployed, we were able to notice the improvement immediately. So what did that look like? It looked like just a complete drop in a cliff where, we fixed it. We've had another issue where we had blocking calls and an asynchronous action that we thought we could optimize. And we did. We implemented Redis, and we didn't account for the fact that without those blocking calls, making the auth call repeatedly, that the token policy would change and expire after 30 seconds. Now, alerting around the error rates for this endpoint raised our awareness, because all of a sudden, at this particular endpoint where people are trying to install the shop into their store, we had a bunch of errors happening around 30 seconds. And once we fixed it, we were able to confirm the fix that our application was working as we expected and our shop was able to install. Now, we also were able to make optimizations around our database, such as looking for opportunities to introduce new index tables so that query times will reduce. And in this case, we reduced an average latency of 300 milliseconds to around 4 or 5. So the point that this presentation is meant to make is that focusing on observability means your organization is going to understand the behavior of your system better than before. It's going to empower your engineers to find and fix the problems. It's going to enable you to build more reliable systems and ship software faster. And it's also going to promote empathy through understanding, transparency, and communication. One thing we've noticed here at Instana is that when our product is implemented at the organizations that purchase our software, they start ramping up users quickly. And historically, with an APM product, you have a few power users and that's it. Where we're seeing organizations with teams of hundreds of engineers have hundreds of users in our system, and they're actively using it to solve their problems and to communicate about their problems. So we think that's really powerful and really empowering for organizations to utilize. One last thing I want to cover is that we're also empowering users to build their own dashboards through Grafana and through a plugin that we publish that interacts with our API so that they can build those custom views. And we use this as Instana to enable us to see particular views in areas that we deem important, that we want to have a running dashboard at all time. So if you're doing microservices without distributed tracing, just take this quote from Yana Dugan. Back in 2008, they were depending on message queue metrics and grepping logs. If you're still doing that and you're doing microservices, really consider leveraging distributed tracing and a solution to help bring that visibility into your organization. Now, you can follow me on Twitter and learn more about observability, microservices, DevOps, Docker, cycling, all kinds of things. And you can sign up for a free trial of Instana at instana.com/trial. And just some notes about upcoming speaking events. I'll be speaking at several events over the next month or two, and I'll also be at DevOps Days Minneapolis at our booth. So if you're at any of these events, please come and see me, come and chat to me about observability. And I hope you all learned a great deal today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us, and we'll be happy to chat. Thank you, and have a great day.